Are you trying to be God?
Yeah, I mean, if you read history, you realize that irony is the language of the universe. The irony is probably that we are the creators of God.
Do you think you're gonna die?
No, I'm basically gonna die trying to do something to not die.
Do you think the world is designed to kill us?
Yes.
Does AI not scare you in any senses? I mean, knowing that it is so much smarter than humans.
I'm more worried about humans than I am about AI. Humans are verifiably destructive.
The day you die is the day we can say he figured out.
He figured it out.
He figured out not to die.
Exactly.
And they wanted him gone.
Exactly.
Bryan Johnson. This is a man who's dedicated his entire life to not dying. Now, this man is also spending millions of dollars every year injecting himself with numerous supplements and the help of AI to try and live forever. But as crazy as all of this sounds, today I had to confront Bryan Johnson because I want to know, is not dying possible or is it one big lie? Okay, so before the podcast starts, as hard as it is to believe, only 1% of the people that are watching this podcast are subscribed. So if you're one of those guys, it would mean the world if you could click that subscribe button. So if you are a fan of the podcast or if you've ever watched any of my content before, please go ahead and press that subscribe button and hopefully we'll be getting better and better guests. Enjoy today's episode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today I'm very excited. We are joined by Bryan Johnson. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I want to start off by saying you're probably one of the most interesting guests I've ever had. And I don't know if that's a compliment, but...
if it's a dunk, that's cool. I'll take it too.
So I want to start off by saying, how did you start with your journey? I mean, you literally have "Don't Die" on your chest right now. So what's that all about?
I guess it started when I was 21 years old. I was a missionary in Ecuador. So I was living among extreme poverty, dirt floors and mud huts. And I came back to the US and it was such a life-changing experience. I just had this burning desire inside. I wanted to do something that would benefit the world. I didn't know what to do. And so I decided that I would become an entrepreneur, make a whole bunch of money, and then try to be useful to humanity. And so fortunately it worked out where I sold my company, Braintree Venmo, and I made a few $100 million. And then it was time of, now I've done that. What do you do?
Wow.
And so I thought about that problem for about 10 years and "Don't die" is the answer I came up with.
So you grew up poor?
Yeah.
Like how much money are we talking? Like how much were you making young as a childhood upbringing?
Yeah, like we only had like 3 cars, 4. No,
I was wondering.
No, like my mother was single. There were 5 kids, and so like, she would make our clothes for school. For example, she would grind the wheat and make our bread. And
wow.
So like, I knew our situation. Like when I was in 3rd grade, I would, my mom would give me a check for $25 for school lunch for the month.
A check?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Before we had Venmo. And I would not cash it because I was worried about our family's financial problems. And so I would clean the tables at lunch when all my friends were eating so I could make enough money to get free lunch at school. And my mom, she didn't know about this. When she found out, she was like, oh, no, like... we're okay.
It's like, okay, don't do that.
I can pay for your food. But yeah, like I was really worried about our financial situation. It was on my mind all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just like, but it was cool. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like it was fine.
I mean, it's just so good to see as a young kid, you still took the initiative to try and help your mom, And how old were you at that time when you were cleaning tables?
So 3rd grade, I guess that's like, is that 8 or 9 years old?
You were 8 years old working?
Yeah.
Wow. And where did you live, by the way, at this time?
I was in Utah.
Okay, America, Utah. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
Now, moving fast forward, so since 8, you're already working. When was like your first real job?
My grandpa, so my father had some challenges, and my grandfather stepped in, and he grew up during the Great Depression in the United States, and so was very frugal, and he'd also served in World War II. He was one of the first soldiers to Auschwitz to free the Jews, and so he stepped in to raise me. And he worked harder than anyone I've ever known.
Wow.
And so my first job was working with my grandpa. We'd build cabins and we'd dig ditches and we would clear out fields. He had a farm. So we would irrigate, we would harvest alfalfa. So probably working on the farm with my grandpa.
Okay. So then you worked for your grandpa. Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to get onto this right now. I was going to do this later. But then growing up, you grew up in poverty. So you decided to be a tech CEO. And you went on to make a tech company, Braintree. Mm-hmm. And you sold that for $800 million. Mm-hmm. How does it feel making $800 million?
I was dead inside. I mean, I had become an entrepreneur at 21 and I sold the company at 34. And that was a pretty brutal time in my life. I had, over that time, 3 little babies. I was depressed for a decade. I was grappling with my religion that I had been born into. I had a challenging personal relationship. So my life was just a bonfire. It was hell. And I would have taken my own life had it not been for my children. And so, yeah, when I got the money, when the wire actually hit the account and I saw the numbers, I didn't feel anything. I was totally numb.
Like, how much money did, like let's say when that happens, like, do they send you 800 million? Like, how much is that?
Yeah, I made, on that transaction, I made just over $300 million.
300 million in your account. Wow, that's insane. So at what point did you say, I don't want to die?
It was a result. I mean, I basically was thinking about this problem for 10 years. And so what I was trying to do is, I've read a lot of biographies, and I think it's pretty cool when you read back in time and you see people who are able to identify like peak aspiration of that moment.
Okay.
You know, like, for example, humanity couldn't have discovered DNA in the 13th century. We didn't have the technology.
Yeah.
And so in every time and place, you can imagine, like, what is the most aspirational or ambitious thing that the human race can identify? And I was asking that question, like, what is it? Like, now I have the $300+ million. What do I do? And if I can do one thing. And so I didn't care about money. I didn't care about making money. I didn't care about status. I didn't care about fame. I didn't want to buy a yacht. Like, I wanted to do something that would be useful to the human race. And picking that was really hard. And so one thing I did is I put together a bunch of dinners with my friends and friends of friends. And I would give them a thought experiment. I'd say, imagine we're in the year 2050 and we are thriving as a species. Like, it's better than anyone thought was possible.
Yeah.
What did we do in 2016 to make that possible? This is when I was having dinners. And then I just listened very carefully to what everyone said. And I then wrote it all down and I put a box around it. And I said, I can't do anything inside the box. I have to be outside the box in negative space. And so basically I had to find something entirely original, like something no one was talking about or really going after. And then I did a second thought experiment, which got to Don't Die, which is I imagined I was in the 25th century, looking back at the early 21st century, and I was listening to their conversation about what we Homo sapiens did in the early 21st century that allowed intelligence to thrive in the galaxy. And it seemed to me that they would say that's when Homo sapiens figured out that they had acquired the technological ability to extend their lives, that death was no longer inevitable. And that's what allowed the species to to basically move into this next stage of evolution and reimagine who we are as a species.
Yeah. Now, an honest question. Do you think you're going to die?
No. So I guess there's 2 answers to that. One, do I expect to die? Yes, in the most ironic way possible. So the universe speaks in irony. So I'm probably going to die by getting hit by a bus, or choking on a pill, or like something really silly. Like, I'm basically going to die trying to do something to not die. That's just because that's how things work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what else do we expect?
Yeah.
So I fully expect that. Also, I don't expect to die. I legitimately believe that we are at that point in time. And this is cool because the fact that I could say this and say it with a straight face is kind of insane. You say it in any time and place, and it's like, that's ridiculous. There's no way. But the fact that it's even a question that you have to ask me, like maybe, like legit, that's the cool place we're in. It's like, you can't just say unequivocally, like, we're all going to die anymore. And that's what I think this makes this moment so special.
I mean, there's never been someone to not die. So isn't it kind of given that we're going to die?
Exactly. That's how it's always been. So it's like, this is the biggest technological advancement in the history of existence on the earth. Yeah.
Now, a few personal questions. Is death a fear to you?
No.
You're not scared to die?
No.
Are you, excited about it? Or like, what's this relation you have with it? Or is this like, it just doesn't exist to you?
It doesn't exist. I don't control it. I can't stop it. I can, of course, look both ways before I cross the street, but it's really outside of my control.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people might say what you're trying to do is you're trying to play the role of God.
Yeah.
Is that something that, you think you're trying to do? Is that cross your path, Because a lot of people say God created humans. God is the giver of life and taker of life. Are you trying to be God?
Yeah, I mean, if you read history, you realize that irony, again, is the language of the universe.
Yeah.
So we've always told the story that there's a god or gods that made us, and we are living within their world. And so the irony is probably that we are the creators of God. That God did not create us in His image, that we are going to create God in our image. And that's, so again, irony. Like if you want to find the truth, look at the exact opposite of what we believe.
Okay, that's a very interesting take. Now, saying that, are you religious yourself then? I'm assuming no.
I mean, it really depends on how you define religious.
Do you believe in a God then?
I really operate on what I can experience and quantify and measure. Mm-hmm. And the idea that, I think it's like in many ways, I don't understand how we can have such strong beliefs about things we don't know anything about. And like the whole of humanity is structured around this idea that there are gods and that there's an afterlife and that nobody knows. How do you know these things? Like it's impossible to know. So why are we so strong in our opinions about these things? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Now, actually, that leads me on to a question. In that case, how do you think humans were created? Because I guess that's also a question we can revert to, right? Like how were humans created in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, there's some pretty good theories on how the universe came to be, how the planet came to be, how the evolution of biology. So, I mean, whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. They are interesting theories. I guess I'm eager to say I don't know on many things.
Now, and I'm happy we got to speak yesterday before this podcast. And one more thing which we didn't manage to talk about. Obviously, you're looking in a way that no one else has ever looked before, which is fantastic, right? No one's ever tried not to die, which is ironic because you said yesterday that everyone in this world, there's one game they're playing, the don't die game. Have you ever considered, I guess you see a lot of billionaires that say like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they're looking towards, let's go explore the universe. Is that something that's ever you've considered, or do you think that's irrelevant? It doesn't matter.
Humans, we are explorers as a species. Yeah. We have explored throughout time, and space has been a frontier of exploration that gets a lot of people excited. And I represent an exploration inwards that I think it's possible that it may be equally, if not more rich, as we explore inside ourselves. Our brains hide right behind our eyes. Like we go forward with the things that we can see. We can say, see that rock in the sky, let's go there. See the rock a bit further, let's go there. We understand motion and walking in distance. Going inside is terrain that we are just unfamiliar with. It's brand new. And so I am an explorer at heart. That's how I understand myself. Yeah. And I want to explore the inner dimensions of consciousness and like all the things that existence could be.
Yeah. Now, moving on, obviously, now your whole mission is to not die and figure that out. And I mean, it's written online, you spend $2 million a year to not die. I mean, where does that money go? Like, what's the process of not dying,
Yeah. What I spend on not dying is actually really cheap. So you can do it for about $1,000 a month.
Okay.
The challenge has been knowing what to do. And so the majority of that money has gone into research, going through the scientific literature, and then measurement. So a lot of times, if a certain health fad arises and people start doing it, oftentimes, most frequently, is the person doesn't know what's supposed to change and how to measure it.
Yeah.
And so there's no way to know the efficacy. And so health and wellness is a lot like religion, where it's really opinion-based and you're fueled by stories. Yeah. And I wanted to create the most scientific and quantified health protocol ever in human history.
Yeah. Now, somewhere was written online, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've injected yourself with the blood of your 18-year-old son. Is that true?
No, I infuse a liter of his plasma. So
what and how does that help in any way? Like, how is that like? Because obviously people refer to these things you always hear the Illuminati and they're there's blood and injections happening. So what's going on there, I guess?
Yeah. So there was a study a while back where an old rat was fused with a young rat.
Okay.
And they shared the same circulatory system.
Okay.
And in that process, the old rat became younger by sharing that. And so it was hypothesized that it could potentially be, blood or plasma. And so it morphed into this plasma process where if you get a liter of plasma from a younger person and you put a liter of plasma into an older person, that older person would become younger. And so what we did is my son gave me a liter of plasma and I gave my father a liter of plasma. And the way that came about is my father called me in a panic one day. He's 71 and he said, I just wrote something for work. I walked away and came back and it was a jumbled mess. And he was basically losing his mind right in front of his eyes and he couldn't see it. And he was panicking. And I said, Dad, if you want, I'm happy to give you a liter of my plasma. Right now, the team and I are studying this plasma therapy.
Is plasma in the blood or is it?
Yeah. So when you draw blood, if you just spin it really fast, the blood separates from the plasma. And the plasma's yellow, the blood's red.
Okay, interesting. Now, obviously, your mission is obviously to not die, but what do you think happens when we do die?
Yeah. So the one thing to say on my father is, with that plasma.
Oh, did it help his situation?
It did. So he saw almost the same effect in him as you saw in the rats. So the animal study replicated in a human.
Wow.
So for me, there was no effect because my biomarkers are already pretty close to my son's, whereas my dad is not as in good as health. And so his speed of aging lowered by the equivalent of 25 years. So he went from aging as a 71-year-old to aging as a 46-year-old, like the speed in which
of aging.
Your body's aging. So it had a dramatic effect and it persisted for 6 months. Still, we haven't measured for the past few months, but it was a really significant effect. Like his coworkers were like, what is happening? This is such a wild situation. So it really worked.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. So it actually helped him I figure out how to do the basic things again, write, and did that help him in that sense, or just slowed it down? Did it kind of reverse it in any sense as well, or? He
feels back. Now, whatever his situation is, I don't know if there's a formal diagnosis.
Yeah.
But, it's not like it was a miracle cure, and there's a whole bunch of questions. However, his quality of life dramatically improved. And so I think it's really compelling. It's been cool that a lot of my friends are like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I want to give my plasma to my parents too. It'd be like the ultimate gift. And it's really, the thing that's cool about this is then they say, if I'm going to do that, I need to be on my A game and be my best self. I need to start sleeping well and eating well and exercising because I've got to be in good shape to help my parents out. So it has a really cool knock-on effect.
Now, we were talking yesterday about, I guess, you said something very interesting yesterday. You said the whole world is selling you die.
Yeah.
And that really stuck in my head. So right now in the world, do you think the world is designed to kill us?
Yes.
And how so?
If you and I take a drive right now to some destination, we're going to drive by all kinds of fast food places. We'll have every choice of processed foods. There'll be opportunities to do all kinds of self-harm. And so alcohol, tobacco, staying up late, all of our norms, all of our culture, all of our food, everything is built around these self-destructive behaviors, doing things that actually increase the chances of disease creation. Yeah. And we celebrate this as under the idea of living our best life or seeking pleasure. But our world is basically built to make us die faster.
Yeah. And saying that, right now, you're a big believer in technology, right? Uh-huh. You say technology is going to be that transformative point where we can finally, not die.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I guess, are scared of it as well.
Yeah.
AI is going to take over. We're going to be the slaves for robots. Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you think AI is probably the most powerful thing right now. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that? Do you think AI is really going to be a big game changer for people, or is there some scary things to AI that we should look out for?
Yeah. Humans being scared about stuff they're not familiar with is as old as time. It's not noteworthy that humans feel fear.
Yeah.
Right. We feel fear about everything that we're not familiar with. We feel fear about things we can't even that we imagine to exist. So our fear is not really good signal on the situation. Objectively, we're building this system of intelligence. We don't know how it's going to evolve. Nobody knows how it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
And so given that we don't know it, then humans map fear on those things.
Yeah.
And so it's not inherently, positive or negative or good or evil. And what I'm saying with don't die is not a selfish endeavor. It is, don't die is the way we as a species should live so that bad things don't happen to us. So for example, when we build AI, instead of pointing it at being better at war or making more money or getting more social media followers, we should use it to not die.
Now, you yourself, do you use AI in any way? And I guess also because you are a businessman, are you invested in any AI companies?
I am.
Which like specifically?
I'm invested in companies making new chips to run the models, in companies building new systems of information processing, of companies building the AI applications. So yes, like across the entire stack from the hardware all the way through the very top.
And how do you necessarily use that AI to figure out, all this miraculous ways of not dying? How is your team using that AI? Is it like you're inputting, like I know people nowadays use ChatGPT. Like, can I go to ChatGPT and say how to not die?
Yeah.
Or is it a bit more, is it harder now, I guess?
Yeah, we need better computational tools to solve aging. Like if we're going to not die, we humans can't solve it by ourselves. We need the help of AI.
Yeah.
And so I invest in companies that are building the technology so that they can bridge that gap, do the discovery, and achieve the breakthroughs we need so that we can not die.
Now, one thing, obviously nowadays social media is very popular. And you said yesterday that it's going to be a very weird place that AI almost replaces us and can do everything better than, let's say, AI can be the content creator. It can even make a human face, So obviously, what's the future look like for us?
Yeah, anyone who makes the argument that AI won't be able to do a given thing is not a strong bet. Because people have been saying that AI can't do this or that for quite some time, and AI has reliably done things that humans said they couldn't do. And so I think in a certain duration of time, it will do all the things we do today and be better at all those things. So I don't hold on to that we as humans should say we want to carve out some unique things. And so what I'm trying to say is that given that, it's better to lean in and say yes and. No, not no but. We don't want to say AI's here and we need to feel special in some way. We just say, here's the situation. How do we build a product?
Now, Elon Musk, I saw he tweeted a lot of things like AI is dangerous. It needs to be controlled. And I guess someone like him who is a world leader, does AI not scare you in any senses? Because, I mean, knowing that it is so much smarter than humans and it can do everything, don't you think we're in a way building something that can enslave even us?
We don't know. This is the thing. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. And what's dangerous about AI is humans using AI. So what's more dangerous is humans. I'm more worried about humans than I am about AI. Humans are verifiably destructive. We kill ourselves, we kill each other, we're violent, we want power and status, and we'll do anything to achieve it. So I'm worried about humans as the primary risk on this planet.
Yeah. Now, one thing you're saying is humans are destructive. And obviously, Mark Zuckerberg is heavily into AI as well. And, a lot of people say Mark Zuckerberg is AI himself, And I'm sure, do you get those comments as well?
Yes, Mark and I are both AI, yes.
You're AI?
Yes.
No, but honestly, how do you, let's say for me looking, how do I know you are not AI?
Yeah, we don't.
Now, we mentioned this yesterday, which was interesting. Nowadays, there's also been lots of talks about, let's say, human chips, using chips to enhance your brain or any parts of your body. Is that something that you would partake in yourself? And I believe there is some of this going on already. I'm not sure where, but how should people feel about that? Because people feel, I guess, okay, if they're going to put chips in our body, it's the government trying to control us. We're just being put into like a matrix system.
Yep.
Or is that completely false in your opinion?
We're going to build new systems of authority. Humans cannot be trusted. We know this.
Yeah.
And so we're going to build new systems so for example, I built a system, an algorithm that takes better care of me than I can myself because I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to keep sweets in my house. Even after all these years of trying to be perfect on Blueprint, I don't trust myself. And so no human is trustworthy. And we can't have a system that is vulnerable, that relies upon human trust. And so, I think these new systems are going to arise, and we humans are going to be in we will manage society in a different way that doesn't require us to trust humans.
And then, going back to my question, what does the future look like for you? Let's say, what is the role of humans in the future? Like, let's say if I said in 200 years, what do you see the future looking like for you?
Yeah, we have a really good example of how to think about that. You go back a million years and talk to Homo erectus. They had an axe in their hand, and they could barely, had a very primitive form of communication. And you pose the question, where's food, where's shelter, and where's danger? You're going to listen because they'll know those things. If you say, tell me about the future of the species, they'll have no idea. We would laugh. Now, we're probably just as primitive as Homo erectus right now. Like, we have...
Because I was going to say, we're very similar still.
We're so... I mean, it's highly likely that we are so primitive, it's laughable. Yet, it's this weird thing where we're smart enough to think we may know something, which sometimes we do.
Yeah.
But this is why... when you talk about the dangers of AI or the future of the human race, nobody knows. And the hardest thing for any human to say is, I don't know. The easiest thing for any human to say, I know.
Wow. Now, obviously, for people watching this, a lot of them might just want to know the basic things. So right now, what's like the top 5 things killing us?
Yeah. So the power laws on health and longevity are very simple. 1 is don't smoke. 2 is exercise 6 hours a week. It doesn't even matter that much what you do. Just be active for 6 hours.
Yeah.
You don't have to go do some esoteric thing. Like, if yoga is your thing, great. Lifting, do some cardio. You can make gains, but basically just be active. Yeah. 3 is a blueprint and or Mediterranean-like diet. 4 is a body mass index of 18.5 to 22.5. And then 5 is little to no alcohol. And then 6 would be sleep. But all those things are very low cost.
And anyone can do them, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, I read online you take 100 pills a day.
Yeah, it's about 50 now. I lowered it to 50.
What are all these pills you're taking?
So no diet can satisfy all of the body's needs. Yeah. And so everybody needs supplementation. Sometimes it varies according to if you eat meat or don't eat meat. Yeah. So there's a little bit of variance, but we've tried to design, we combed through all the scientific evidence and we said, how can we create a perfect diet? There's not just one way to do it, there's multiple ways, but we had a system where every calorie had to fight for its life. And so my diet is 2,250 calories a day, and it's very precise in terms of the foods that have made the cut. We tried to build a perfect diet, and then what the diet can't satisfy, we take in pills. There's basic things like vitamin D, which people are familiar with, and then there's more advanced things like calcium alpha-ketoglutarate and fisetin, things that have been shown to have evidence in slowing down the speed of aging or similar effects.
Yeah. Now, what's your opinion on let's say vegans? Because I think a lot of people say vegans don't get the nutrients they need.
Yeah. So there's a few things. So I'm vegan. I do caloric restriction, which means I eat 250 calories less than what would be prescribed for me.
So you are a vegan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Except collagen peptides. Except for that, I am a vegan. I do an hour a day of exercise, so it's pretty vigorous. And in doing those 3 things, I'm in the top 99 percentile for optimal body fat and muscle. My cardiovascular ability is in the top 1.5% of 18-year-olds. And my total bone mineral density is in the top 0.02% of 30-year-olds, which is age min for that test. And so, and I also do 110 grams of protein a day. So common wisdom is you've got to eat meat, you have to eat a lot of calories, and you have to have 200 grams of protein. And these are all the assumptions in the world generally. And I've done the exact opposite on every single thing, and I've still achieved 99th percentile in every category.
But do you still have protein in another way, or
110 grams though, not 200. But I guess I say this, I'm not saying don't eat meat. Like, if meat's your thing, fine, do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I've done the exact opposite of common wisdom.
Yeah.
And I have I have 99th percentile biomarkers.
So, now, I want to say, even for me, this is something that I guess I was wondering yesterday. Do you think it's all worth it, what you're doing? As in, let's say someone like me looking from the outside, I'd say, I guess the beauty in life is experiencing new things and just using our time here to live, if that makes sense. And some people might argue, for you, why are you spending all this time trying to not die? and in a sense, you're not living.
Yeah.
So is that not something that worries you? Like you're spending all this time figuring out how not to die. And in a sense, like you said, you probably still could, but now you're just not living.
Yeah. It's funny. They say that, and I say, you're dead inside. I'm living.
Okay.
I mean, they're telling me that with a piece of pizza in hand. They're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
They just had, they have a hangover from alcohol the night before.
Yeah.
They feel shitty and cloudy. And then they ask me why I'm not living. Right? I feel extraordinary. I've never felt this good in my entire life.
Yeah.
But it's so funny that the burden of proof is on me. Like I'm the one exercising and eating well and sleeping well, and I'm the person being accused of not living.
Yeah.
Like it's wild that that's the assumption. It's so funny. Like the irony, right?
Yeah.
The irony that people pose that question to me and that they're like, oh yeah, this dude's in a cage of his own making because I'm living and making healthy choices.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Now, I want to say, if you had 24 hours to live,
Yeah.
what would you do in the last 24 hours?
I would make it 48 hours.
I like that. That's very interesting. Wow. That's a very interesting answer. Now, obviously, I know you're so in tune with also spreading this message of, and I guess it's a beautiful thing. I don't think anything you're speaking about necessarily is bad, of like people living longer. Now, what would your last message be to the world if you were going to die?
That after 4.5 billion years on this planet, we are on the eve of giving birth to superintelligence. It is our special opportunity to create the most extraordinary existence in the galaxy.
Yeah.
We don't know if other life exists. We are here, we're conscious, we have this in our capabilities, and I would say, let's not squander this opportunity. Let's rise above ourselves and have the sobriety to realize how remarkable this is, and let's do it.
Wow. Now, I want to say, obviously, that nowadays there's a lot of talks about Ozempic. Have you heard about this? What's your thoughts on that?
So I do this thought experiment where I challenge people on their willingness to adopt algorithms to take care of their health and wellness.
Yeah.
And most people's response is like, no way. I want my free will. I want to make my own decisions. Ozempic robs people of their free will. Like it turns hunger off in the brain. You're not hungry. And so you're able to lose weight because you don't want to eat food.
Yeah.
So people basically are trading free will to lose weight.
Yeah.
So humans will run their mouths and say that they won't do certain things, but the moment something allows them to achieve something they care about, they will remove all morals and ethics to go after that thing. And so Ozempic is a miracle drug. Now, like it has a lot of side effects. It's very complicated. So like it's like a messy situation.
Yeah.
But still, if you're 300 pounds and you can't lose weight, I get it. So I'm not going to criticize it, but I'm also not going to support it. It's it's just like part of us getting better at building drugs.
Okay, actually, I thought you were going the other way for a second, but it's interesting you say that. I think when it benefits people, they then look into it, then they ignore, like, I guess, the bad sides to it.
I'm like, will humans take a pill to do, name your thing? Yes. The answer is yes. Humans will take a pill for any objective, to fill up, to lose weight. And so when the technology is there, we consume it insatiably.
Yeah. Now, obviously, what's one thing you would say to the mass audience that everyone's doing that they don't realize is killing them? Because I feel like also one thing I also think is, in my opinion, affecting a lot of people are just phones in general.
Yeah.
Is phones and social media a big problem in your thoughts?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is their own beliefs. So it's their idea of what life is. Yeah. So most people come at this of they see me doing my thing, and they immediately become defensive, and they say like, you must be miserable, you must hate your food, you must they assume everything bad, and they're doing this out of a fear response, and they're doing this to protect their own vices. Yeah. And so I'd say the biggest thing killing us is our own beliefs.
Yeah, and you said everyone says, let's say you're miserable. Like, I mean, just to ask a question, are you happy?
Oh, I'm extraordinarily happy. Like I've been depressed. Like I know what it feels like to want to kill yourself for 10 years. I've never been happier in my entire life. I've never felt more expansive. I've never felt more stable. I love life.
Now, one thing I loved about talking with you yesterday, someone asked you, is depression real? And your answer was, I'm not against any belief. You said, I'm open to everything and I'll listen. And that was so unique, because a lot of people, let's say, might look at you and say, he's crazy and he just has his ideas. But that's not you.
No.
You are very open-minded about everything. And I mean, depression is something a lot of people talk about. You have a lot of people saying it's fake, it's made up. But I mean, in your case, a bit different because you actually experienced it.
Yeah.
Now, for people that are watching this and maybe are depressed, what is a solution to their depression?
Yeah. So I can talk to camera here.
Yeah.
Hi, friends. Yeah. If you're depressed, I feel you so much. It's the worst thing in existence. And I guess I understand where you're at. And so the thing that helped me was I tried so many things to stop depression. I tried all kinds of therapies. I tried certain, SSRIs. Nothing helped. The thing for me, it was environmental. So it was a bad relationship, and it was trying to get out of my born into religion. I left that, and things got dramatically better. So each person is unique, but I just want to say I empathize with you. And also I want to give you encouragement that there is light and hope on the other side, and don't give up. Even though you do want to give up and it's very painful, that I'm so happy I persisted and I made it out. So I just wish you the best.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful message. And I think everyone's going to appreciate that. Now, we have a few more questions before we wrap up. Obviously, I feel like you're not worried about a lot of things in life. You're very mission oriented, but what is your deepest fear?
I don't really have any fears.
Nothing. There's nothing that worries you. I mean, dying, you don't know. That's interesting. But isn't that like, and I guess it will come back to the question of like, are you human?
I mean, you think about fear, like we worry about so many things. And when you actually take an accounting, we didn't need to worry about those things.
Yeah.
They're actually okay. So the majority of things we worry about is fine. When people experience catastrophic things in their life, they bounce back. They're okay. Like everything is okay. It's all okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't really buy into this idea that fear is a rational thing. We're just dealing with the chaos of our mind. We're not our minds. We're not our thoughts. We're not our emotions. And we can observe it. I observed mine. I mean, depression really was a training ground for me. Like I realized when my mind is every few seconds like, hey, you should kill yourself. Life sucks. There's no hope to exist. Like that's really hard to listen to all day long.
Yeah.
And finally I was like, wait a second. These are not my thoughts. I'm just like, I can observe these. And once I could create some distance, fear is the same way. If a fear response would come up, be like, that's kind of silly. Why am I going to listen to that?
Yeah. Now, interesting other topics. Obviously, let's say you say you are a human, like you have humanly senses.
Yeah.
Obviously, what's love look like for you?
Yeah.
Because I feel like people only get to see the objectives you're on, but they don't get to see a personal side of you.
Yeah. I mean, I have 3 children.
Yeah.
And I love my children very much. And I worked really, really hard to be a good dad.
Yeah.
And their mom and I got a divorce. And she's in the religion. I left. And 2 of my children decided to stay in the religion with her. And while we have a good relationship, they keep me at arm's length. Yeah. So I'm not the authority in their lives. Their religion is. And my 18-year-old decided to come with me and leave the religion, and he is my best friend.
Yeah.
And I would say that's love. Like, to be best friends with my son is the most beautiful thing I've had in my entire life. And I long for my other kids, to be in a similar situation. And kids are kids. Like so I'm not giving up, and I hope that I can have the same relationship with each one of them.
Wow.
Like to me, that's love, and that's what I live for.
That's beautiful. Now, obviously, because you're in such a unique position where you have so much money, your kids, I guess, how do you make them grow up? Because a lot of people say, nope, I'm gonna make sure they understand the value of money.
Yeah.
Is that something that matters to you? And do your kids also see that? Like, my dad, I mean, he's got a lot of money. How do you treat that sense of it?
Yeah. When I made a whole bunch of money, I decided that I was going to be transparent with the kids. So sometimes when people make money, they don't want to tell their kids about it. They don't want them to be exposed to money, and those consequences. So like when the kid grows up, it's like, hey, mom and dad or whoever, your parents are really rich.
Yeah.
And so when I made money, I was like, hey kids, I just made this much money. Here's my bank account. Here's what it looks like. Here's the investments I'm making. So I was just open book with them because I wanted them to learn how to exist with a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't want to hide it from them. And so
do they get access to any of it, or how does that work?
We do have a system, but they are all expected to be frugal. So definitely, I'm very frugal.
Yeah.
I really value spending money on things that benefit other people, and not like I don't own a yacht. I don't take expensive vacations.
What's the most expensive thing you own? Do you have a nice car or anything?
Yeah, I have a car and a house, and those are the only two possessions I really have. I don't own anything else.
Now, in terms of investments, obviously, crypto. Mm-hmm. Are you invested in crypto?
I am.
Do you think is crypto going to take over money? Do you think?
Crypto is a formidable technology that practically solves all kinds of problems that we need to solve in society.
Yeah.
And so I'm bullish on the technology. It's going through this process of finding its place in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm very supportive of it. I think it solves fundamental, important problems that we need to solve.
Now, I guess what's one thing, and I'm just have a few last questions. What's one thing you think that normal people do that you can't do, I guess? Because Nas yesterday was mentioning that, like, let's say, for example, you're very strict with your meals.
Yeah.
Is there any other things that you feel like limits your life because of what you're trying to do?
I mean, the biggest thing is I know people call me crazy. And I, in turn, look at them and I think you're crazy. So, like, one of us is crazy. Is it you or is it me?
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably the biggest thing where I'd say, yeah.
So, last question I wanted to ask before we wrap things up. Obviously, you're trying to get into this whole new wave of life. Obviously, people always look into things in a crazy way. Like, do you think aliens exist then in that case?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we frame intelligence as knowing. So to your question, I could spin up a string of words about aliens. Ultimately, my opinion means nothing. Right? It's just a form of entertainment for other people. So the most intelligent response is for me to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is the wisest and most intelligent, because knowing the limitations of our own intellect is really important. And we blur the lines between what we know and what we want to do for social bonding. The majority of conversation is to socially bond, not to do truth searching.
Yeah.
And so that alien question, if it's like, hey, let's riff about aliens, and like we're having a good time, that's a different thing. But if you're asking me to state an opinion that's going to potentially influence someone else, it's much more productive for me as a human to say, I don't know, to create very clear lines on what we do know and don't know.
What you don't know. Now, one more thing I want to mention. Yesterday, we were talking about this. Someone was mentioning, I guess, something you take, and they said it's illegal in some countries. And also, I guess, drug use. Number one, have you taken any drugs before? Mm-hmm. And number two, and this is actually also something I've always thought about. I've always thought like maybe certain drugs are illegal because maybe they actually do something very interesting, but the governments don't want us to try it.
Yeah.
So what's your take on drugs, drug use, and do you think there are some drugs that might be illegal but actually life-changing?
Yeah, I take a lot of drugs. I love drugs. Yeah. So I take metformin, I take a carbose, I take rapamycin, I take a dasatinib. So let me tell you, so I take metformin, which is a diabetic drug. I take a carbose, same thing. I take rapamycin, which is used for immune suppression, for organ transplantation. I use dasatinib, which is a leukemia drug. And so I do take a lot of pills that were built to solve really important diseases.
Yeah.
And so I take them for the purposes of longevity. And so, I do really appreciate the process of our drug creation abilities, and it's very promising.
Now, do you think, and because obviously you're in the space of like investigating like things that make us live, let's say cancer. Mm-hmm. And I've read a lot of articles about this online that there was someone who solved how to cure cancer, but the government killed him because they didn't want it to be solved. Is that something you think is true? And do you think there are like drugs that can solve a lot more problems, but they're, I guess, being banned? Even with the whole COVID situation, people think, it was the government's trying to control us. Or is that something that I guess we just shouldn't even look towards right now?
Yeah, it's probably accurate to say never underestimate the deviousness of humans, and never overestimate humans falling into a trap of giving others too much credit for their deviousness. And so, like, on one hand, humans are incredibly devious and evil.
Yeah.
We all are. And at the same time, we oftentimes imagine others to be more competent in their evilness than they are. So somewhere in the middle.
Now, I want to say two things. Is that not something that worries you? Let's say, for example, you, Bryan Johnson, tomorrow you find a way to not die.
Yeah.
Like a proven way to not die. How do you, like, is that your plan to share it with others?
No, I just keep it to myself.
And I mean, like, assuming it is your plan,
Yeah.
are you not worried that you might try and spread that message and then that's it? Like a government or someone just says, all right, he's out, we're killing him.
Great. You know, that just makes the movement more strong, right? And then now you've got a martyr.
So if you were to die tomorrow,
Yeah.
it's safe to say, if it's from an unknown cause, that, let's say, the Matrix or this
Yeah.
Illuminati killed you.
Yeah.
That's a safe bet to make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, like, it would make the movement stronger.
So that means the day you die is the day we can say he figured out.
He figured it out.
He figured out not to die.
Exactly.
And they wanted him gone.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's an amazing way to wrap up the episode. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. If there's any last message you have to the people watching this, I'd love for you to just speak directly to them and just spread your message.
Yeah. Hey, friends, great hanging out with you today. So my encouragement is make sleep your number one life priority. Going to your bedtime is your most important appointment every single day. If you're 2 minutes late for a meeting, you apologize for being late. Do the same and respect yourself for your own bedtime. And then secondly is let's be epic as a species. This is our moment to build something so extraordinary, so far beyond our imagination. Let's do it. This is our opportunity.
Wow. I mean, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the
Thanks,
show.
man.
I appreciate it. Actually, just off podcast, I want to ask you a few things. I had a friend, and I'm just going to say this. She's actually very successful, and she was talking about this drug that she takes, which takes her to another dimension.
Yeah.
I personally found her crazy.
Yeah.
Is there drugs that I guess take you to like a spirit world?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so let's base this in something concrete.
Yeah.
So we travel back in time 300 years ago, and we say, how big is this world? How big is reality?
Yeah.
They could point to the mountains and the streams, and they could, like, all their sensory experiences, but they'd give you a map of reality. What they didn't know is there's this thing called the electromagnetic spectra, which is like 1 trillion times bigger than what we know about.
Yeah.
There's a microscopic world that's almost infinite. And there's the galaxy, which we can't even, like, it blows our mind, so big. And so existence was like dramatically larger than anyone knew.
Yeah. But it's just like drugs can take us to this?
Well, so that's the question. The cool question is, how big is consciousness? And so we know what it feels like to learn and to fall in love and to succeed and to fail. Like, we have these emotional states, but it's a really cool question. How big is consciousness? And this goes back to your question before, is our biggest ambitions would be like, let's go to the moon. Oh, let's go to Mars. Like, that's where we put our biggest aspirations. But the thing is, the biggest ambition we could ever have may be exploring the size and dimensions of consciousness, like the inner world. And it may be the coolest thing in all of existence.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it'd be, as an explorer, that's where I want to go. It's a really cool question. I think it's fun if we could journey in that world. And so to me, that's the priority.
And that's with, like, obviously taking these medications and stuff. Now, is there any like drug that you've taken, like, which was like, is it the best the best drug or worst drug, you know? Do you have a list of those?
Yeah, we have a power law of all things. Like, we went through all the science, we ranked all the science according to how big the effect size was, and then we graded the evidence, and then we've just gone through and implemented the power laws.
Okay, have you ever taken, I mean, I don't know if I can say it, like, let's say cocaine. I've always thought about it.
Yeah.
I actually thought before, I know it sounds crazy, is take a video like 24 hours on a certain drug.
Coke, yeah.
You know, and like,
Wow.
but I know they say lots of CEOs take it, you know.
Yeah.
I've never touched drugs, but I've always had this thought, because let's say I play lots of video games, and I've always thought, like, in video games you take these potions, which are essentially drugs, to power yourself up.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe it's similar in the real world, but obviously they're banned or they're illegal. Or what's like the worst drug you've taken been, and the best?
The best one I take is probably, I just had my first gene therapy. So if that counts as a drug, it ranked number 7 as most powerful. So I did my first gene therapy. That was the best. The worst is fast food.
That's a drug.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, no weed.
No, it's fast food. Fast food is addictive. It's awful. It's the worst. It's poison.
Wow. All right, perfect. Thank you.